Cher Ami.
The Pigeon who saved an encircled battalion in October 1918. The First World War was entering its final, brutal chapter. Across France's scarred landscape, millions of soldiers fought a struggle that consumed generations. Artillery roared day and night, trenches scarred Europe, and amid the chaos, a critical communication crisis unfolded. Today, with instant satellite and encrypted communications, it's hard to imagine an army losing contact. But back in World War I, communication often determined survival or annihilation. Telephone lines were constantly cut by shellfire. Radio technology was still primitive and unreliable. Foot messengers frequently vanished into machine gun fire. In this environment, one of the world's most advanced armies had to resort to a surprisingly ancient solution: pigeons. And among hundreds of thousands of wartime messenger pigeons, one bird became a legend. Its name was Cher Ami, French for dear friend. This is the story of how a single wounded pigeon became one of World War I's most unlikely heroes. But to grasp Cher Ami's importance, we must first understand the battlefield crisis that made history. By autumn 1918, Allied forces launched the massive Meuse-Argonne Offensive. It was the largest American military operation to that point. Over 1 million American soldiers were committed to this campaign. The objective was simple yet deadly: break German defenses and force the war's conclusion. Among the units pushing through the dense Argonne forest was the U.S. Army's 77th Division. Many soldiers hailed from New York City's immigrant neighborhoods. Irish, Italian, Jewish, Polish working-class men now faced one of the war's most dangerous battles. Their commander was Major Charles Whittlesey. On October 2, 1918, Whittlesey's force advanced aggressively into German defenses. Too aggressively. While neighboring units stalled, the 77th Division kept pushing forward. Soon, approximately 550 American soldiers found themselves isolated deep behind enemy lines. German forces closed in, trapping the Americans. What followed would become known as the ordeal of the Lost Battalion. The name itself sounds dramatic. The reality was far worse. The trapped soldiers occupied a small ravine. German machine guns dominated the surrounding terrain. Food supplies were nearly gone. Water was scarce. Medical aid was virtually impossible. Every attempt to send runners through enemy lines ended in disaster. Some were killed. Others simply disappeared. Communication with American headquarters had collapsed, and then the situation became catastrophic. American artillery began shelling its own men. Friendly fire. The artillery units supporting the offensive didn't know the Lost Battalion's exact location. Believing German troops were in the area, they unleashed devastating barrages directly onto the trapped Americans. Shells exploded among exhausted soldiers already fighting for survival. Men who had escaped German bullets were now dying from American artillery. Whittlesey understood the horrifying truth. If communication couldn't be restored immediately, his battalion might be destroyed by its own side. The major still had one option left: pigeons. Throughout World War I, homing pigeons served as essential military assets. Despite modern technologies, pigeons remained astonishingly reliable. Military studies showed delivery success rates as high as 95%. A pigeon could fly through smoke, through artillery fire, through bad weather. And unlike telephone wires, it couldn't be cut by enemy bombardment. Across the war, thousands of pigeons carried messages that influenced operations and saved lives. Yet even among these remarkable birds, Cher Ami stood apart. Cher Ami had already served with distinction before joining American forces. The bird had reportedly carried messages during the Battle of Verdun, one of history's bloodiest. By October 1918, however, its most crucial mission was still ahead. Inside the Argonne forest, conditions were desperate. Previous pigeons sent from the Lost Battalion had failed. Some were shot down. Others never returned. Time was running out. Casualties mounted. The American artillery barrage continued. Whittlesey prepared one final message. The note, on lightweight paper, went into a small aluminum capsule attached to the Pigeon's leg. The words were simple, direct, urgent. We are along the road parallel to 276.4. Our own artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it. The message carried more than coordinates, carried the fate of hundreds of men. Soldiers gathered as Cher Ami was released. The bird climbed into the air. Almost immediately, German soldiers recognized what was happening. Messenger pigeons had become valuable military targets. The Germans knew stopping a single bird could prevent vital information from reaching Allied headquarters. Gunfire erupted.
À Bulestruc, Cher Ami.
The pigeon fell from the sky. For a brief moment, it seemed the mission had failed. But then something extraordinary occurred. The wounded bird rose again. Despite devastating injuries, Cher Ami continued flying. 25 miles separated the trapped battalion from headquarters. The pigeon crossed the battlefield while bleeding heavily. When Cher Ami finally arrived, the bird was barely alive. One eye was blinded. A deep wound cut its chest, its right leg nearly severed. The aluminum message capsule remained attached to what was left of the limb. But the message had survived. And that changed everything. American commanders finally understood the Lost Battalion's position. The artillery fire was corrected. Rescue efforts for the trapped soldiers intensified. Days later, relief forces reached the survivors. Of the original 550 men trapped, only 194 emerged alive and able to continue fighting. The exact extent of Cher Ami's contribution is debated by historians. Battlefield confusion often creates legends. Some scholars caution that no single event saved the Lost Battalion alone. Yet, the message delivered by Cher Ami undeniably provided critical information at a crucial moment. Without that message, casualties would almost certainly have been even greater. The story quickly captured public imagination. In an era desperate for heroes, Cher Ami became a symbol of courage, endurance, and sacrifice. The French government awarded the pigeon the Croix de Guerre with Palm, one of France's highest military honors. It was an extraordinary recognition for a bird. General John J. Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Force, reportedly stated that the United States could do almost nothing that would be too much for Cher Ami. The wounded pigeon received medical treatment. Veterinarians amputated the damaged leg. Members of the Lost Battalion later crafted a small wooden prosthetic leg for their feathered rescuer. After the war, Cher Ami was brought to the United States. Celebrated as a hero, with newspapers extensively covering the bird's narrative and crowds marveling at this unusual veteran. For a short period, America's most famous war hero wasn't a general, a politician, or a decorated soldier. Instead, it was a pigeon. However, the mission's resulting injuries were ultimately too grave. Cher Ami passed away in June 1919, less than a year after its renowned flight, due to issues stemming from wartime injuries. The bird was then preserved and housed at the Smithsonian Institution, where it can be seen now. Over 100 years have passed, and visitors still pause at the exhibit. Many approach, anticipating a straightforward account of an animal's life. They depart contemplating something far more significant. The narrative of Cher Ami doesn't truly focus on a pigeon. It highlights the precariousness of communication during wartime. It illustrates how advancements in technology can occasionally falter when most critical. It speaks to the overlooked heroes whom history nearly leaves behind. World War I is frequently recalled through its generals, politicians, tanks, and large-scale assaults. Yet, history is sometimes shaped by smaller incidents. A solitary message, a singular choice, a lone flight. In an era predating satellites and digital connections, the survival of about 200 soldiers relied on an injured bird carrying a dispatch through enemy fire. That situation provides a potent reminder. Powerful individuals do not exclusively dictate the course of history. Occasionally, it is influenced by the most minuscule and unexpected participants imaginable. And among the numerous accounts from World War I, few are as extraordinary as the story of Cher Ami, the pigeon that refused to fall, the messenger that defied death, the unlikely champion who bore hope across a battlefield and attained legendary status.